Genesis 41. At the end of 2 full years, Pharaoh had a dream. He was standing by the Nile. 7 fine-looking cows were coming up out of the Nile, and they were grazing in the reeds. Then 7 bad-looking, thin cows were coming up after them from the Nile, and they stood beside the other cows at the edge of the river. The bad-looking thin cows ate the 7 fine-looking cows, the fat cows. Then Pharaoh woke up, and he fell back asleep again, and had a second dream. There were 7 heads of grain growing on one stalk, healthy and good. Then 7 heads of grain, thin and burned by the east wind, were sprouted up after them. The thin heads swallowed up the 7 healthy and full heads. Pharaoh woke up and realized it was a dream. In the morning he was troubled, so he called all the diviner priest of Egypt and all its wise men. Pharaoh told them his dream, but no one could interpret them for him. Then the chief cupbearer said to Pharaoh, "Today I recall my failures." Pharaoh was enraged with his servants, and he put me in prison in the house of the captain of the guard, me and the chief baker. We each had a dream one night. Each of us had a dream and its own meaning. Now a young man, a Hebrew, a servant of the captain of the guard, was there with us. We told him our dreams, and he interpreted the meaning of each of our respective dreams for us. It happened just as he said to us, restored me to my office, but he impaled the baker. Then Pharaoh summoned Joseph, so they brought him quickly out of the dungeon. He shaved himself, clothed himself, and came to Pharaoh. Pharaoh said to Joseph, "I had a dream, and there is no one who can interpret it. But I have heard about you. You can interpret dreams." Joseph replied to Pharaoh, It is not within my power, but God will speak concerning the welfare of Pharaoh." Then Pharaoh said to Joseph, "In my dream I was standing by the edge of the Nile. Then 7 fat and fine-looking cows were coming up out of the Nile, and they were grazing in the reeds. Then 7 other cows came up after them. They were scrawny, very bad-looking, and lean. I had never seen such bad-looking cows as these in all the land of Egypt. The lean, bad-looking cows ate up the 7 fat cows. When they had eaten them, no one would have known that they had done so, for they were just as bad-looking as before. Then I woke up. I also saw in my dream 7 heads of grain growing on one stalk, full and good. Then 7 heads of grain, withered and thin and burned by the east wind, were sprouting up after them. The thin heads of grain swallowed up the 7 good heads of grain. So I told all this to the diviner priest, but no one could tell me its meaning. Then Joseph said to Pharaoh, "Both dreams of Pharaoh have the same meaning. God has revealed to Pharaoh what he is about to do. The 7 good cows represent 7 years, and the 7 good heads of grain represent 7 years. Both dreams have the same meaning. The 7 lean, bad cows that come after them represent 7 years, as do the 7 empty heads of grain burned by the east wind. They represent 7 years of famine. This is just what I told Pharaoh. God has shown Pharaoh what is about to do. 7 years of great abundance are coming throughout the whole land of Egypt, but 7 years of famine will occur after them, and all the abundance will be forgotten in the land of Egypt. The famine will devastate the land. The previous abundance of the land will not be remembered because of the famine that will follow, for the famine will be very severe. The dream was repeated to Pharaoh because the matter has been decreed by God, and God will make it happen soon. So now Pharaoh should look for a wise and discerning man and give him authority over all of the land. Pharaoh should do this. he should appoint officials throughout the land to collect 1/5 of the produce of the land of Egypt during the 7 years of abundance. They should gather all the excess food during these good years that are coming. By Pharaoh's authority, they should store up grain so that the cities will have food, and they should preserve it. This food should be held in storage for the land in preparation for the 7 years of famine that will occur throughout the land of Egypt. This is the way the land will survive the famine. This advice made sense to Pharaoh and all his officials. So Pharaoh asked his officials, "Can we find a man like Joseph, one in whom the Spirit of God is present?" So Pharaoh said to Joseph, "Because God has enabled you to know all this, there is no one as wise and discerning as you are. You will oversee my household, and all my people will submit to your commands. Only I, the king, will be greater than you." "See here," Pharaoh said to Joseph, "I will place you in authority over the land of Egypt." Then Pharaoh took his signet ring from his own hand and put it on Joseph. He clothed him with fine linen and put a gold chain around his neck. Pharaoh then had him ride in his chariot, used for his second in command, and they cried out before him, "Kneel down!" So he placed him over all the land of Egypt. Pharaoh also said to Joseph, "I am Pharaoh, but without your permission no one will move his hand or his foot in the land of Egypt." Pharaoh gave Joseph the name Zaphanath-Panath. He also gave him Asenath, daughter of Potiphar, priest of On, to be his wife. So Joseph took charge of all the land of Egypt. Now Joseph was 30 years old when he began to serve Pharaoh, king of Egypt. Joseph was commissioned by Pharaoh and was in charge of all the land. During the 7 years of abundance, the land produced a large, bountiful harvest. Joseph collected all the excess food in the land of Egypt during the 7 years and stored it in cities. In every city, he put food gathered from the fields around it. Joseph stored up vast amounts of grain like the sand of the sea until he stopped measuring it because it was impossible to measure. 2 sons were born to Joseph before the famine came. Asenath, daughter of Potiphar, priest of On, was their mother. Joseph named the firstborn Manasseh, saying, "Certainly God has made me forget all my troubles and my father's house." He named the second Ephraim, saying, "Certainly God has made me fruitful in the land of my suffering." The 7 years of abundance in the land of Egypt came to an end. The 7 years of famine began, just as Joseph had predicted. There was famine in all the other lands, but throughout the land of Egypt there was food. When all the land of Egypt experienced a famine, the people cried out to Pharaoh for food. Pharaoh said to the people of Egypt, "Go to Joseph and do whatever he tells you." While the famine was over all the earth, Joseph opened the storehouses and sold grain to the Egyptians. The famine was severe throughout the land of Egypt. People from every country came to Joseph to Egypt to buy grain because the famine was severe throughout the earth. Bum, bum, bum. Ads rolling in. So it is 2 full years after the baker and the cupbearer, and we're going to get a timeline to find out he is 30 years old, which means he was in Egypt 13 years before he comes to Pharaoh. So we don't know how long he is in Potiphar's house. Could be a couple of years. In order to be put in charge of things, you're not going to be a household slave for a month or 2 and then suddenly put in charge. I think it's several years. You continually get put in charge of more, suddenly put in charge of everything. I think he is years in Potiphar's household. And then he is in prison for years before he gets elevated there. So if we take off, and I'm just going to do some arbitrary math here, he is there 17 years. Take off the 2 years of after he gets the dream told and they get out. And let's just split it in half. That's 15. So let's say maybe he is in Potiphar's house for 7 years. And maybe he is in prison then for 8 years, which add another 2 to that, 8, and it's 10 years. So maybe he's in Potiphar, or maybe it's 5 years. I think it's years, very, very likely that he is in both places. And I would go as low as saying he's got to be at least 5 years, I would say, in Potiphar's house to raise to the level that he is in and then move forward. So now it's 2 full years since then, and Pharaoh has a dream. So we just jump forward 2 years, and then we're following the timeline of Pharaoh. So everything is as was. Joseph's in charge of the prison. He's just in charge. He's just doing a good job. He's just blessed there. He's just being fruitful. He's just doing what he's supposed to. And now Pharaoh has a dream, and Pharaoh has 2 dreams. And these are really, really weird dreams from the standpoint of we have cows, magnificent cows, the best cows anybody's ever seen, and we have ugly cows, the ugliest cows anybody's ever seen. I've never seen uglier cows. They're the ugliest cows. Nobody's ever seen an uglier cow. And the ugly cows eat the fat cows, and the ugly cows look just like they did before. So even though they ate all of the fat cows, they don't get fat. Okay, I get that dream. But eating grain is weird. Heads of grain, 7 on a stalk. Okay, that's abundance. 7 grains on a stalk. Okay, don't think of corn. That's probably how you've pictured it. No, think of wheat. Think of wheat. You have 7 grains abundant on wheat or some other grain like that. You're going to have some real abundance there. And then you have 7 scrawny, scorched by the east wind. They're just not going to, and they eat. How does grain eat grain? I don't know, but it's a dream. So it's a dream. And that's what happens. And so he goes to he summons, and also he wakes up in between the dreams, which is an interesting point, I think. Because waking up in the dream helps you to remember that you had the dream, and then he falls back asleep after being able to consciously think of the dream so that it can stay in his memory, go from subconscious to conscious memory, and then he has the second dream, and he wakes up, and he remembers it, and he remembers both of them, and then he's disturbed, and he realizes he wakes up. So in the morning, he calls all the diviner priests of Egypt and the wise men. The Hebrew, Khartom, is Egyptian loan word that describes a class of priests that were skilled in such interpretation. So he calls the ones who can interpret, and they can't do it. And since all the wise men are there and the cupbearer is there for all of this, he's like suddenly going, I realize my he was 17. That wouldn't be a pedophile in most places. Yeah, I wouldn't go down that direction at all. Yeah, no. That's not a place I would go down at all. Okay, so the cupbearer's like, I realize my failures. I said, I don't think Joseph needed to ask him to say, remember me. I do think there was arrogance in the remembering me. Hey, remember me. You know, when you get restored in 3 days, like, hey, get me out of here in 3 days, guy. Yeah, and here's my story. So notice the story isn't mentioned at all. What Joseph did is what's mentioned. Back when Pharaoh got mad at me and the baker, and you threw us in prison. We both had dreams, and there was a Hebrew who was a servant who was in the dungeon. We told him the dreams, and the dreams came true, and so he knows how to do this. So now we have Pharaoh summoning Joseph. And they brought him quickly out of the dungeon. He shaved himself, and then he clothes himself, and he comes to Pharaoh. So he doesn't come in his prison garb. He is coming before Pharaoh. He needs to be presentable. He can't come with a beard because the Egyptians do not want, they don't like hair. Hair is to them a detestable thing. And so they don't want hair around. So he shaves. Now that he is out of prison, he is going to shave, make himself presentable, clothe himself in proper attire, and come in. He is humbling himself by shaving. He is not declaring, I am Hebrew and I don't have to shave to go before Pharaoh. We see an act of humility here. Now, it doesn't say what he shaved. I'm assuming it is his beard, but it also probably his head. Egyptians would shave, like, entirety of their hair. Some of them, all of it, head to toe, shave everything. I think that's the implication. And to shave your head, to shave your beard is an act of humiliation. He is humbling himself entirely here before Pharaoh when he comes in. Pharaoh says, I had a dream. There's no one who interpreted it. I have learned that you can interpret dreams. And Joseph's reply is not, tell me your dream. Joseph's reply now is out of sincere humility. This is why I love, Joseph to me is more beautiful that he learns the lesson of humility, and now he is in the place of humility, and out of the place of humility, God elevates him. Not Joseph was bound and destined for this, and it just took a couple of wrong paths, but Joseph, through grit and determination, made it there. No, he did, through humiliation, finally arrive. It is not within my power, but God will speak concerning the welfare of Pharaoh. It is not within my power. It's not within me. God will answer. He doesn't even say, tell me the dream. He just says, it's not within my power. It's God. Now, I know he gave God credit last time, but he also was so eager to do it. I don't see any eagerness in their anxiousness. God will do it. God will do it. Then Pharaoh tells him the dream, and like we have the repetition of the dream, and then he's giving more facts in the telling of the dream. There's a little bit of change in it. Some people like to focus on that. Since Joseph just says they're one and the same dream and all of that, I don't think there's anything to paying attention to the little nuances that are different. So Joseph says both dreams of Pharaoh's have the same meaning. So it's interesting. Sometimes dreams have different meaning. Sometimes they have two. So here, both dreams tell the same. And he says the reason for it is you have two dreams because it is set and decided by God, and it will not be changed. Sometimes people have dreams, and here's what's going to happen. And through repentance and mourning and restoration, dreams can be avoided. But here, it's done twice. It's set. This will not be changed. God's mind will not be changed. God has already set these plans in motion. They will come to pass. So the 7 cows and the 7 good ears are the 7 bountiful years, and the 7 lean and the 7 scrawny are to the 7 years of famine that are going to come to the land. So there will be abundance in the land, and then there'll be severe famine. The dream was repeated to Pharaoh because the matter has been decreed by God, and he will make it so. Now Joseph doesn't say, and I've got a plan, and if you get me out of prison, I'll tell you the plan. But I'm going to hold this plan on what you should do for myself and get myself out of prison. Joseph doesn't do that. This is why I say Joseph has finally humbled himself. Joseph is going to reveal a plan. Now, does this plan come from God also giving this to him? I don't know. Or is Joseph just gained wisdom as he has been over the last 13 years, operating under the power of God and the blessing of God to be able to be fruitful and to be bountiful in what he does? We don't know totally if this comes from God or not, but certainly it's God's gift in him if it doesn't come from God revealing it when he reveals the nature of what the dreams mean. And here's the solution to the problem. So Joseph doesn't withhold this, and Joseph doesn't say, and if you put me in charge, I'll do this. Joseph does nothing. He humbly says, God will give the interpretation. Here's the interpretation. And here's a solution to the problem. Like, I want you to have the solution to the problem. So he tells the solution to the problem. Give authority to someone who is wise and discerning over all the land of Egypt. And here's what you should do. Collect 1/5 of all the produce in the land of the 7 years of, like, 1/5. This seems like not enough to me. This seems like not enough. Like, my brain would say you should collect 50%. Like, if I collect 50% in the year one, I will have 50 year one of bountiful. I'll have 50% to give out in year one of famine. If I collect 50% in year two, I'll have 50% out to give in year two. Collecting 20% doesn't give me enough to give out, does it? Does it? It seems like not enough. Hey, Druzy, welcome in, friend. So to me, the collecting 20% does not seem like enough. Now, to us, it probably seems like, oh my goodness, you're giving away 20%. 10% seems like an artificial thing. We've got to give the tithe, but now we're going to give a double tithe to Pharaoh. But it's years of bounty, so the crops are greater than normal. And if you are a wise person, you should be storing your own amount that you have. So you're collecting 20% of an abundant crop that's above and beyond what you've ever had. So 20% of that would still be more than a normal harvest that you have. He says, take and collect it in the 7 years. You should gather the excess in the good years. You should collect it in all of the cities to preserve it. And then you should be held for the 7 years of famine to occur in all the land. And then this advice made sense to Pharaoh and all his officials. So Pharaoh asked all of his officials, can we find a man like Joseph, one whom the Spirit of God is present? So Joseph was so because God had enabled you to know all of this. There is no one as wise and discerning as you are. You will oversee my household, and all the people will submit to you. You are going to be second in command. Joseph doesn't ask for this. Joseph doesn't plot his way towards this. Joseph just humbly says, here's what the dream means, and here's a solution. And out of that humility, he is now elevated. He is raised out of it. Frank Turek kind of shows the place, I think, the storehouse of grains, something in a video explained all that. Yeah, he went to Egypt. I don't know if where he's at is the actual one or not. It frankly doesn't matter. There's lots of people who have gone to try to show biblical things, and you can find lots of videos. So, okay, so he is now, and also he is given a signet ring. Okay, so here, notice something. What did Tamar get from Judah? He got a signet ring and a staff and fine linen. Well, he got cloak or cords there. So there's a little play here of the Judah and the scepter and Joseph being put in charge. I think there's a little play on that. It doesn't mean there has to be much, but just a little like nod there. The thing that identifies him with power, the thing that identifies who he is identified now with Pharaoh. So he has lost his family. He has now become part of the household of Pharaoh. He is the son of Pharaoh in some ways, not entirely, not going to be in the lineage and those kinds of things, but by position and power because he's second in charge of the land. He has clothed with fine linen clothes and put a gold chain around his neck. Okay, wordy girl, sounds good. And he cries, so he puts him in a chariot, and he is that is the one for second in command, and yells at people to kneel down when he goes through. The form appears to be a causative imperative to kneel, to pay homage, to bless. Yes. So this is not worship. This is pay homage. There's a difference between worship and paying homage to. So they're honoring him as second in charge of the land. And then we have these statements of, so rather than Joseph doing the braggadocious thing of saying, I'm second in charge of everything in Potiphar's house, and I have only one thing as he kept from you, we now have Pharaoh saying, you are in charge of all of the land, and you have permission, and nothing is kept from underneath you except me. And he gives him the name Zaphanath-Panath, and he gave him Asenath, daughter of Potiphar, priest of On, to be his wife. Okay, so we got some names here. Zaphanath-Panath, and I can never remember that. The name is uncertain. Many recent commentators have followed the proposal. The God has said he will live. Others suggest God speaks and lives, or the man he knows, who is called. Okay, so we don't know exactly. And then we have the daughter of Potiphar. Sounds like Potiphar. The name Asenath may mean she belongs to the goddess Neat or Nath. Daughter, or she belongs to Nath. A novel was written at the beginning of the 1st century entitled Joseph and Asenath, and included a legendary account of a conversation between Asenath and Joseph's faith in Yahweh. However, all that can be determined from the chapter is that the children received Hebrew names. Yes, that's all we know of that. They have Hebrew names indeed. And then this is where we learn that Joseph is 30 years old. So we learn that he is 13 years that he has been in Egypt as slave. That's been the problem. And now we have during the 7 years of abundance, he has children. So he is married during that 7 years. He has children. So they are beyond the stages, we should assume, of it being detrimental to their life if a famine is happening. They live beyond those years through the time of bounty. And he's storing up. The 2 sons were born to Joseph before the famine came. Manasseh means he who brings about forgetfulness. So he's forgetting that he is a slave. He is forgetting that God has abandoned him, that he has been. Certainly God has made me forget my troubles of my father's house. So the father's house troubles. And then Ephraim, certainly God has made me fruitful in the land of my suffering. Ephraim, to bear fruit. So fruitfulness, which is one reason why double fruitfulness, is why the northern kingdom is often called Ephraim, because there is the blessing of the double blessing. And so now we also have Joseph with 2 sons. We have Judah with 2 sons. We have Joseph with 2 sons. We have Isaac with 2 sons, Jacob and Esau. So we have this repetition of a couple of sons. We do have a couple of twins. That I don't think that matters in all cases. And there we go. And then we have the 7 years of abundance in the land come to an end. The famine begins, and Joseph puts his plan into action. The people are coming and buying food. The people are crying out for Pharaoh. We don't have food. He goes, go to Joseph. I put him in charge. He's the man in charge. Go to him. And he sells grain. And the famine was severe throughout the land. And the people from every country came to Joseph to buy grain because the famine was severe throughout the earth. Now, that doesn't have to mean, we don't have to go to this conclusion. That means, well, there was a famine also in Australia and the Americas. That's not what's in view here. It's in all the land, in all of the realm that is known to Egypt, where Joseph is dwelling. All the region surrounding is having a famine. It's everywhere. No one escaped it. That's the point of it. It talks in totality language to accomplish the saying that nobody could escape. There wasn't another place to go to. There wasn't a second option.